Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the Real Cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a former fourth-string college quarterback and mediocre middle relief pitcher who earned himself a film and media studies degree, which they don't just hand those out. You have to pay a pretty penny for those. Are they worth it? Debatable. Now I'm a single dad who loves to talk New York Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, TV, and some comedy along the way. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping the New York Giants' loss on Monday Night Football to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Talk about John Mara's vote of confidence in Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, reacting to that statement. Is Brian Daboll more Jim Fassel or is he more Dan Reeves? We'll break that down. We'll preview the upcoming game against the Washington Commanders, who beat the Bears on a last-second Hail Mary. Everything's rosy down in the DMV. And we'll also look at the upcoming trade deadline, November 5th, Tuesday, November 5th, I believe. I don't think anything else is going on that day. Is it? Am I missing something? So without further ado, let's get started on here. All right. So wasn't able to cover this in the last episode. John Mara gave his vote of confidence to Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. And I believe he gave no comment on Daniel Jones. So for anyone who is waiting with bated breath, wondering in suspense what DJ's future might be, I think you kind of know the answer to that right now. I don't think he's going to be the starting quarterback in 2025, barring something ridiculous happening down the stretch here, which I'll get into. Teams that have started 2-6 have made the playoffs. Not a very long list. My only, few thoughts here, and I don't know that they're really original thoughts. I don't know that I'm really regurgitating what other people are saying, but I can understand where John Mara is coming from. I can. You only gave Pat Shurmur 2 seasons. You only gave Joe Judge 2 seasons. You pulled the plug fairly quick on both those guys. There is a track record. It's not a great track record. There is precedence in terms of head coaches that have gotten off to bad starts to their coaching careers, head coaching careers, losing records in their first 2 or 3 seasons, and have gone to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, went to the playoffs repeatedly, 3 or more times. So there's evidence of that. It's not a very long list. It's, and we'll get into it, but so he doesn't want to pull the plug on Daboll after this season, unless things really go off the rails, which who knows, they could, I think frustrations are boiling over. You saw that in the Monday night game against the Steelers. A lot of yelling, a lot of shouting, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blaming on the sidelines. This is a team that I think wants to do better, wants to win, just can't win. And I think a lot of that comes down to having one of the youngest rosters, if not the youngest roster in the league. You have a lot of young guys that trying to prove themselves, maybe playing for their coach, maybe getting pissed off at their coach, and are coming from maybe a college program or a high school program, or coming from just a career prior to the NFL, but they didn't lose a lot. And they don't know how to handle losing. And so, tension's high. There's a lot of conflict, drama, etc. And you can see that in the fact that Daniel Jones is losing his mind on the field is proof positive that, in my eyes, I don't think that this team is heading in the right direction. But I don't know. From John Mayer's perspective, it's like, well, I've pulled the plug on my 2 previous coaches after 2 seasons, and where has it gotten me? So maybe I'll just see this thing out and give them, and by vote of confidence, it's like, well, their job, I don't know that he didn't, did he say that their jobs are safe? I personally, I get conspiracy brain, and, I love Game of Thrones and the Penguin, oddly enough, I'm not into politics, but I do like to sit back and watch with a big ass bowl of popcorn. People get all political on each other, try and strategize and strategize and outwit and outthink and dupe and deceive. And so part of me has like Game of Thrones brain where it's like, all right, is John Mara just setting them up to fail? He's like, I'll give them publicly give them a vote of confidence just to see how, like, maybe that will take some of the pressure off of them. Like, okay, I'm not coaching for my job. All right, I'm not GMing for my job, and you give them that vote of confidence and maybe they just relax, unclench their assholes a little bit and make them feel psychologically safe so that he can get better performance and productivity out of them. And that trickles down to the players and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's a tactic that works in some cases, in most cases, in most corporate environments, I think, in most workplaces, where it's like you want your guys to feel comfortable. And by them being comfortable, they can be their best. They're not worried or anxious about their job. They can just do their job. So I think that's the right move by John Mara, right? It takes it, and he's gotten to that position mostly because it's his family's business, but you learn a thing or two. And I think not a lot of owners out there would have done that. I mean, you look just in the same frickin' building with the Jets firing Robert Saleh. Woody Johnson was just like, nope, not happening. And this is after they and then they trade for Davante Adams and lose to the Patriots. Woof, dude. I mean, the Giants are bad, right? They've been bad for a long time. The Jets, though, that's tough to swallow. You brought in the quarterback that thought would be your savior. Proven guy. He sees 4 snaps last season, and this season he looks like a shell of himself, right? I mean, that offense is still not good. And yet you have Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. You just have like so many weapons. And that offense still sucks. Wonder why. So they went all in. They hopped on board the Aaron Rodgers Express, and it's taken them nowhere. So I feel, I'm not as tuned into the Jets as I am to the Giants, but you have to feel a little bit better as a Giants fan than you do as a Jets fan, knowing that, like, holy fuck, like, we're doing everything that Aaron Rodgers wants us to do, and we still can't seem to get it right. So with the Giants, it's a different story. It's like, well, we're dealing with the aftermath of both Jerry Reese and Dave Gettleman. Everyone thinks this is Gettleman's fault. Jerry Reese and this tail end of his tenure really fucked us in terms of like personnel, roster, etc. And Dave Gettleman inherited it and didn't make it much better. I love seeing these tweets or X's, whatever the fuck they're called now, being like, Dave Gettleman gave us, and it's Dexter Lawrence, a couple other players that have done well. But you need more than a handful of guys, I think. Right? It's a 53-man roster. It's 11 starters on each side of the ball. You need more than like 3 or 4 guys. It's like he hit on some. And, I did an exploration of this on one of the previous episodes, but like Gettleman's hit rate, when you compare it to the GMs, of the teams that went to the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl, he fell short. And Joe Schoen, I think the confidence level in him is higher than it is for Daboll. Schoen, how many we saw the graphics, we saw the tweets on the timeline that this is the best draft class in NFL this year, the Giants draft class 2024. And so that's encouraging and that's promising. And so I think that maybe plays a huge part in Mara giving them a vote of confidence, quote unquote. I would imagine the leash is about as short as it gets in 2025. I don't know that you really want to, if he gets off to another 0-2 start and gets off to another 2-6 start, it's just like, and they have quote unquote their guy. It's like, that's where you're in. I think that's where you get into really dangerous territory. That 2022 season, man, it's crazy how it really altered the franchise's trajectory. You don't make the playoffs in that season. And then you have this kind of start to this season after last season. And I think that there's a much, much higher chance that you don't see Daboll make it year 4. And Schoen is then on the hot seat. But, as good as this draft class has been so far, we're only halfway through the season. Maybe you did find your franchise running back in Tyrone Tracy Jr. Kind of it's looking that way. Malik Neighbors is obviously a wide receiver 1, but I'd be hard pressed to think that we're going to sign him once his rookie contract is up. So we have him for like 4 or 5 seasons. Drew Phillips is a pretty decent corner. I think he got burned a couple times against Pittsburgh. Theo Johnson looks like he could be a decent pass catching tight end once they figure out how to target him and scheme him open and design plays for him. His stat line's like 3 to 5 catches, 30 to 50 yards a game. That's exactly what you would like out of him, and you're getting it. So I think that's good. But you look at like Tyler Nubin, obviously. Every snap, every day, every game starter as I don't want to say underrated, but like flying under the radar for league wide. Like as Giants fans, we see it. We see like how good he's grading out. Right now, is he making like the big splashy plays? I'd like to see some interceptions, but like big support in the run game. Not that our run defense is any good, but big support in the run game and holding his own. So, but then you look at the 2023 draft, the 2022 draft. Ooh, Kayvon's missed a bunch of games due to injury. Evan Neal. Oh my God, dude. Oh my God. We'll get to it in the Steelers recap, but holy crap. What a misfire. Daniel Bellinger, 1 snap against Pittsburgh. So it feels like he has lost. He's like the 3rd tight end now behind Theo and Manhurts. What a name. Wandale is like, he just is what it is, man. It's just like he might lead. He might be top 10, top 5 in receptions and targets and not even come close to top yardage. And is that a recipe for success? I don't know. I'm not sold on Wandale Robinson, man. I'm really not. I don't know how to unlock him, but like the stuff that we're doing with him is like, it's okay. So it's like, I don't know that he's really going to be the kind of guy that is going to be this huge contributor. He sees a lot of targets. He catches 5 or more balls a game, but it's like 30 yards, it's just not a difference maker. And I'm starting to view it as more of a crutch more than anything. But so I don't know that the 2023 draft, I was so high on that afterwards. Jalen Hyatt, Deontay Banks, John Michael Schmitz Jr. Jalen Hyatt's can't even see the field. Maybe gets more playing time once if Slayton is traded, which we'll get into. But there's talk about Isaiah Hodgins being elevated from the practice squad and getting snaps over him. So Hyatt looks like he's, that's needs major development unless he decides to really take it upon himself. Like, this is a stupid comparison, but it's just top of mind for me. Amani Toomer in like 96, 97, 98 was kind of like, he was a decent returner, punt returner, but wasn't really making any kind of impact at wide receiver. And then 99, I think he did. I could be completely wrong about this, but I think he changed up his training regimen. Him and Tiki Barber, those two guys who are now, I mean, you're talking about the rushing franchise leader in rushing and the franchise leader in receptions and receiving. Monty Toomer, Tiki Barber. Those two guys didn't really get off to hot starts. Maybe returning the ball they did, but in terms of at their primary position, running back, wide receiver, they weren't like dynamic. They weren't playmakers. They weren't anything. And then like after a year, 2 or 3, going into the 99-2000 season, I don't know if they updated their training regimen or they took it more seriously. They're more disciplined, whatever. But they took it upon themselves to get better and improve. And they became, cornerstones of the franchise. Dependable guys that you went to in clutch situations. So will that happen with Jalen Hyatt? I mean, you hope so, but it's not looking that way so far. So Hyatt seems like he's trending towards a bust. John Michael Schmitz Jr., missed a lot of games due to injury. PFF grades are not great. I guess he's doing okay, but he's also an older guy. I think he's like almost 25 or is 25 now. So it's like he hasn't really taken the next step, I don't think. And then you have Deontay Banks. Jesus Christ. This guy has had more cons than pros, especially this season. Last season was kind of a mixed bag. It was like, all right, well, I see promise here. You can see him being a CB1. He never really got torched or burned that much. And he held other top receivers in check for the most part. This year has been like he's had one good to great game, and the other games we are sitting there and saying, where's the effort? Where's the tackling ability? It just feels like it's going down a really bad path. And I said it during the game. I was just like, I would not be shocked if this dude is traded. I mean, you look at, that's one thing you can say about Shane is like identifying like, okay, this isn't working out. We got to move on from it. So, and I think the same with Daboll, and most times it's worked out. Sometimes it's been to their detriment, but most times it's worked out. Like they can identify, okay, not working out, not happening. We need to move on. They did it with Kadarius Toney. Would they do it with Deontay Banks? Dude got fucking benched. We've been calling for Daboll to make a move because your actions have consequences. You need to have accountability, and he finally did it. And now we get to see how Deontay Banks responds. But so, I think the leash for Shane is maybe a little bit longer, given how the success of the 2024 draft class. But you start to look at like the 2022 draft class, the 2023 draft class, and you start to say like, we really need some of these guys to be next level performers. And thus far, it's like, I guess you would say Micah McFadden and Kayvon Thibodeau. And am I missing anyone there? That 2022 draft class is tough to look at. Kayvon, it's Kayvon and Micah are the two guys that stand out from that draft class. Evan Neal can't even crack the lineup. Wan'Dale Robinson is whatever. Josh Azudu, I don't need to even comment on that. Cordell Flott could be taking the next step. Obviously he got hurt, but it looked like he was progressing. Daniel Bellinger has regressed. Dane Belton is, I guess, a okay depth piece. DJ Davidson is like okay depth piece. McKeithen, I don't even think he made this. Did he make the roster? Is he on the practice squad? And Darian Beavers, ACL. So like, that's a lot of picks, and to only have two kind of sort of turn out. Woof. And then, last year's, Banks trending the wrong way. John Michael Schmitz not progressing like you would hope. Jalen Hyatt regressing. Eric Gray, not a factor. Trey Hawkins, demoted. Jordan Riley, inactive. Javarius Owens is even on the team anymore. So those two drafts are really not great. I think if you want to really increase your confidence in Joe Schoen, you for sure need one guy or more from each of those. You need one or more guys from each of those draft classes to really step it up and take it to the next level. And I don't know that you're really seeing that. I don't know that it's going to happen. So I asked the question in the intro. I thought I'd kind of readdress it. I'm not going to take a deep dive here. It's going to be pretty brief, but is Brian Daboll more like Jim Fassel or Dan Reeves? I think the answer is, fairly clear and obvious. There's not a ton of mystery here, but I picked these two because each of those coaches in their first year as head coach with the Giants experienced success. They made the playoffs, just like Brian Daboll. Jim Fassel lasted longer than Dan Reeves. Dan Reeves, after the 93 campaign, he loses Phil Simms. He loses Lawrence Taylor. He inherits Dave Brown. And, in 94, we just missed the playoffs. Winning record, got off to a really shit start. It's like 3-7, I think we were at one point. And we won our last 6 to go 9-7. So almost made the playoffs. And then, of course, 2 more seasons that were garbage in 95 and 96, which led to the hiring of Jim Fassel. So 95 and 96, we go, I think, 6-10 and 5-11 or vice versa with Dan Reeves. The offense looks like garbage. The defense, for the most part, I think 96, I don't think that we had a great defense. But throughout the 90s, we had good defenses. Top 5, top 10 defenses. It's just our offenses were atrocious. And Dan Reeves, coming from Denver, you think would be able to instill some kind of confidence in terms of your offense. And so they turned to Jim Fassel, who's offensive-minded, former quarterbacks coach for the Giants. I think it was under Ray Handley. So he had worked with Phil Simms, Jeff Hostetler, etc. And I guess even Dave Brown, because Dave Brown's first year was 92. Jim Fassel, coach of the year, 10-5-1, playoffs, first season. And then had okay, 98, 99, our defense was pretty much in check. He goes 8-8 in 98. We just missed the playoffs. I remember we lost on like a tiebreaker, one of the world's most ridiculous tiebreakers with, I think it was like Green Bay, Detroit, and Chicago, the 4-way tiebreaker. But our offense was awful. Our offense was not great in 97. Our offense started to get a little bit of a spark with Kerry Collins in 99. We went 7-9. And then he goes to the Super Bowl in year 4. So in my eyes, this is the last losing season you can have from Brian Daboll. You can't have another losing season in 2025. I think you almost have to make the playoffs. I could see a scenario where we go 9-8, or we do go 9-7-1 again, and we just miss the playoffs. In which case, yeah, sure. But if you go 8-9, I honestly think that you need to cut ties. And here's why. There have been 529 NFL head coaches. 184 of those coaches have made the playoffs at least once. Brian Daboll is a part of that elite group. That's 35% of all NFL head coaches have made the playoffs once. 97 of those 529 NFL head coaches have made the playoffs in 3 different seasons. That's 18%. So I decided I didn't look at all 529 NFL coaches. I think my head would fall off. I decided to look at those 97 coaches that have made the playoffs in 3 different seasons. To me, you make the playoffs. I mean, that's rare air. 18% of all NFL coaches in history. That's very creme de la creme, top of the top. So if you've made the playoffs as a head coach in 3 different seasons, to me, that is a successful coach. I would say you've had a successful NFL coaching career. Now, of course, you inherited a great roster, or, you just happened to stumble upon a great player who carried you. Yeah, sure. There are instances like that. But in most cases, if you are an NFL head coach and you made the playoffs in 3 different NFL seasons, to me, that's impressive. And you're considered a good coach. And so of those 97 coaches, only 10 to 11 had losing records in their first 3 seasons. So that's 2% of all coaches, all 529 coaches, 2% had losing records in their first 3 seasons, and then went on to make the playoffs in 3 different seasons, which I am using as the barometer as that's a good coach. I probably will write a blog or an article about it, but Bill Belichick is probably the best example. Fired by the Browns after going 36-44 over 5 seasons. So he had kind of middling, almost 500 records, just barely losing in his first 2 seasons. And then that 3rd season, I think it was 94 when they went 11-5. So that bought him a couple more seasons. But there were, I think there were 2 more losing seasons there. So he's fired by the Browns. And then obviously we know the rest. Tom Landry. This was this is before my time, a little bit of eye opener. I mean, I caught the tail end of his career when I was a kiddo. In Tom Landry's first 6 seasons with the Dallas Cowboys, he did not have a winning record. From 1960 to 1965, he was 25, 53, and 4. He didn't go to the Super Bowl until year 11, and he didn't win the Super Bowl till year 12. He didn't win a game in his first year as a head coach, and he didn't win more than 5 games until his 6th year. That, to me, feels like the exception to the rule. That's just an outlier. It's like Phil Simms. I bring him up almost every podcast, but almost no one has had the career trajectory of Phil Simms other than, I guess we could say, Daniel Jones. So Tom Landry, if you're saying, okay, what's the potential for Brian Daboll? This is the potential. Chuck Noll in his first 3 seasons didn't have a winning record. 1-13, 5-9, 6-8. He was 12-30 over his first 3 seasons, and he wins the Super Bowl in year 6. Bill Walsh had losing records in his first 2 seasons, 2-14, then 6-10, Super Bowl champion year 3. Jeff Fisher didn't have a winning record until year 6. He went to the Super Bowl in 99 with the Titans. But, Jeff Fisher is Mr. 500. He's like 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, 7-9. So, which, this is how down bad Giants fans are. I would take 8-8, 8-9, 7-10. Maybe not 7-10, 8-9, 9-8. I would take that. I would take that in a heartbeat, year after year after year. Instead of this 5-12, 6-11, 5-11, 6-10 bullshit. I would sign up for that in a freaking heartbeat. If you're like, Brian Daboll is going to coach the Giants for 6 years, and we're going to be 8-9, 9-8 every single one of those years, I'll take it, because you're in contention. 9 times out of 10, you are in contention. You're in the hunt at 8-9, 9-8. You're simply not at 7-10 or 6-11 or 5-12. Dick Vermeil was 9-19 in his first 2 seasons. He went to the Super Bowl in year 5. Jimmy Johnson was 8-24 in his first 2 seasons, 1-15 in his rookie campaign, and went to the Super Bowl champions in year 4. Ron Rivera, 13-19 in his first 2 seasons, went 12-4 in year 3, went to the Super Bowl in year 5. Weeb Ewbank. Now, he eventually, wins as head coach with the Jets, but he was a coach with the Colts first. He was 13-22 in his first 3 seasons, and they were NFL champions in year 5. Kyle Shanahan, 10-22 in his first 2 seasons with San Francisco, Super Bowl year 3. Greasy Neal. That's the head coach's real name, and it was my nickname in college. 4-17-1 in his first 2 seasons, NFL champions in year 8. Horace Gregg was 24-33 in his first 4 seasons with the Browns, and then he went to the Super Bowl in his second year with the Bengals. And there are a few others that I didn't include in that list because they either never went to a Super Bowl. I think it was they never went to a Super Bowl, or they had literally it was 3 playoff appearances, 3 seasons with playoff appearances. And that would be guys like Wayne Fontes, Jerry Glanville, Buddy Ryan. So, is Brian Daboll going to be a Wayne Fontes, Jerry Glanville, or Buddy Ryan? I would sign up for that, dude. I would sign up for that. That's how low it is right now. That's how bad it is. And then you look, I'm about to recap the Steelers game, but you look at what the Steelers have done, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, and it's been mentioned ad nauseum, but it bears repeating, dude. The longevity that that franchise has gotten out of their head coaches is unparalleled. You have Mike Tomlin, who hasn't lost more than 8 games in a season for the past 18 fucking seasons. You have Bill Cowher, who I don't think had many losing seasons. And he coached for a shorter time than Mike Tomlin. And before that, you had Chuck Noll. So it's they're doing something right in Pittsburgh. And considering that we're 2 of the more Steelers, Giants are 2 of the older franchises, 2 of the more storied franchises. I mean, I wanted to say respectable franchises, but I think that's really taken a turn for the worse for the Giants over the past decade. So it's what is Mike Tomlin doing that he's able to take? And this is why whatever Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are feeding John Mara, I would love to know. I would love to know, because you can look at guys like Mike Tomlin, who he hasn't had the same roster over the past 18 seasons. He went to the fucking playoffs last year with Mason Rudolph as his starter. Doing something right. Doing something right, man. So with that, let's recap the Giants-Steelers game from Monday night. You want to talk about vote of confidence. I did not have any kind of vote of confidence for this Giants team heading into this Monday night contest. We are atrocious on Monday night. 26-48-1 on Monday nights, including 16-33-1 on the road. We had been 0-2 in primetime games so far this season. And the Steelers had won 21 consecutive home games on Monday Night Football heading into this matchup. And the last team to beat the Steelers on their home turf on Monday Night Football was, you guessed it, the New York Giants in 1991. So nothing would surprise. It's I almost want to say nothing would surprise me with Brian Daboll's Giants. So it's there's a part of me that could see us getting a win against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. The odds obviously stacked against us. I mean, they have one of the top defenses in the league, and our offense is just sewage. It's bad. So I expected a blowout, and I was not, I wasn't surprised that we were able to hang with them for a full 60. I wasn't surprised, but I was ultimately we're not going to win. It's just, it's a replay. It honestly just feels like I'm watching, and I know there's little intricacies here and there and differences here and there, but it feels like you're just watching the same game. You're watching the first Commanders game in Washington. You're watching the Cowboys game at home. Similar thing where it's what are you doing to win the game? We get the big play and we immediately fuck it up. It's you can't even savor the little wins because they're immediately fucked up the next play. So, spoiler alert, the Steelers have now won 22 consecutive home games on Monday Night Football. And we are now 0-3 in primetime games. So Pittsburgh is one of the NFL's best second half teams, and they proved it yet again. And I think that's, is that on coaching? It feels like it's on coaching. To be able to hang with teams in the first half and then it all falls apart in the second half, that's just like, it's coaching, right? It's got to be. The stats are pretty much even across the board, team stats. There weren't much differences there other than the penalties. We had 11 goddamn penalties, and, we had a penalty wipe out a touchdown. We had a penalty wipe out a first down. It's just like penalty push us back, can't convert. So, I don't know. I mean, the only team that I can think of that gets used as an example of a successful team that has a lot of penalties is like the Raiders from the 70s. And that's just because they were just like unsportsmanlike conducts all over the place. They're just like a mean sons of bitches who were angry and hostile and want to take it on the other team. And honestly, if that was our approach, I wouldn't hate 11 penalties, but it's just like bonehead shit. That's just like, it's so stupid. Whereas like, if it's like personal foul, like, whatever, I'd be like, you know what? I don't mind this because we play with a friggin' attitude as opposed to being soft. So, third down wasn't as bad as it was last week. 33%, still not great. Pittsburgh was at 46% third downs. And time of possession was about even. So, I mean, and the score was about even. So it's like we kept up with them, and yet Steelers are 6-2 and we are 2-6. And it's like, and if we just have a couple guys make a couple plays, maybe we are 6-2. You beat Washington, you beat Dallas, you beat Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, obviously score doesn't reflect how close that game was, but it's just, and I watched the entire game, and I just, the entire time I'm like, oh, it's nice that we're in this game. It's nice that we're being competitive, and that's what I wanted, right, out of this season, out of this team. I want to be competitive. I don't want what happened against Philly, where it's just like we look like we're just sleepwalking and like no one's competing. I don't want to watch that. If I'm going to watch losing football, I'd rather watch competitive losing football. But now it's at the point where it's like, I really thought we could have beat Washington. I thought we could beat Dallas. And with Steelers, I was like, there's no way we're winning this game. Even after, Akarike gets that punch out of on Russell Wilson, knocks the ball loose, and we get the ball in Pittsburgh territory. I was just like, we're going to find a way to fuck this up. Sure enough, we did. And this is what I didn't get into it when we were talking about Joe Schoen's draft classes, but I will get into it now. The fact that we have a guy we signed off the 49ers practice squad, Chris Hubbard, starting at left tackle over Josh Azudu and Evan Neal is, that is a tough pill to swallow for Joe Schoen and for John Mara. Tough pill. 7th overall draft pick cannot crack the lineup. And if Hubbard went down, I think Azudu is the next guy up. So Evan Neal is officially like the 3rd or 4th tackle on this team. What the fuck? Oh, straight off the couch, Chris Hubbard. And it's his, and the fact that it's his first career start at left tackle, that's all you need to know about our inability to find offensive linemen that are good in the draft, at least. We say, I guess Joe Schoen kind of saved himself and said, hey, our drafts, when it comes to offensive line, have been just puerile, just heinous. I'm going to make up for it in free agency. And for the most part, he has. It's better than what we've used to. It's, I feel like a broken record at this point. We're getting betterish pass production. I think the sacks number is high. I think they've given up like the second or third most sacks in the NFL, but I think you could say like there's a bunch of those that are on Daniel, So if you were to look at like what sacks are really attributed to the offensive line versus the quarterback, you'd see like, okay, it's not, they're probably like league average. But yeah, I mean, losing Andrew Thomas that was the death knell, man. I don't think you can bounce back from that. I really don't. And that's on Joe Schoen. You need to have depth. You need to have guys that can step in and play. How many other teams have injuries along the offensive line and are still able to make it work and are still able to score points? How fucking many, dude? Bengals went to the goddamn Super Bowl. Chiefs went to the goddamn Super Bowl. I mean, Eagles, Cowboys, they lose guys, starters, Pro Bowlers, all pros, and then just next guy up just comes in and performs out of his mind. So as much as we have not fixed the offensive line by any means. We've taken a step in the right direction. There's still a lot of work to do there. A lot of work to fortify that offensive line. When you have to sign a guy off the fucking practice squad and bring in another guy, former top draft pick, off the streets, because the two guys that you fucking drafted in 2022 can't play. Like, can't play. They're healthy. Can't play. Woof. It was Chris Hubbard's first game action since November of 2023. Whoa. DJ, Daniel Jones, 24-38, 264 yards, 0 touchdowns, interception, one of the worst interceptions I've seen, which is saying a lot because he throws a lot of bad interceptions. 72.7 QB rating. He's tied for the second most. His 24 completions is tied for the second most of the season with, I forget what game. Who gives a shit? Daniel Jones also had his second most passing yards in a single game this season, behind the 281 he put up against Dallas. It's the second most completed air yards behind the Dallas game and the highest completed air yards per completion and per attempt. So if there is, I guess, a bright side to this game and his performance is like at least he's throwing the ball down the field more and completing it. That there's one pass that stood out in my mind where he has a guy open that's short. I think it was Theo Johnson. He's like wide open, but he's a little bit shorter. And then he has Slayton. I believe it's Slayton in a deep in route, deep crosser. And he throws that and he completes it. He didn't complete it so Slayton could catch it on the run and get some yak, but he completed it and it was down the field. So that's where we're at right now. It's like, baby steps. Year 6, baby steps. This is now 3 straight games without throwing a touchdown for Daniel. He hit Darius Slayton for 43-yard pass on the first drive. It was the longest completion of the season for the Giants. Yikes. Also the longest play of the previous 2 weeks, run or pass, which was maxed out at 15 yards. I mean, again, is Brian Daboll Jim Fassel? How long does it take to turn around an offense? Our offense has sucked in 97, 98. In year 3 started to get better towards the tail end. In 2000, pretty good. But I don't think that offense really became, it's like, again, it just like, I think about to Jim Fassel's offenses with Kerry Collins, and it's like 2000, good. 2001, 2002, inconsistent, got really good towards the end of the season. 2003, not so great again. So, listen, I'm not sitting here saying that he's not like I have said he's a bad coach, but it's not like he has 0 redeeming qualities or doesn't do anything right. There's a lot that he does that is nice and is good, but I don't think he has what it takes to elevate the team and to elevate the roster. And that's the only thing. The only thing I think that is saving him is twofold. One is we inherited really bad rosters, and we have the youngest roster in the NFL. And I think if they're saying that to John Mara, they're saying patience. Like, there's a lot of potential here, and if you give us the chance to see it through and develop them, it'll pay off. That's basically what they have to be saying to John Mara, because it's like we did get blown out last week against the Eagles, which to me is like, that's the Bell barometric pressure. That's like the barometer, right? That's the measuring stick. Like, are we, we talked about last year, closing the gap between the Giants and the Eagles and the Cowboys. And, we definitely didn't do it last year. And it's like, we're not really doing it this year, but maybe in year 10, we'll close the gap. Jesus Christ. Jones only attempted 3 runs for 1 yard, lost his first fumble of the season. And boy, was that a doozy. Strip sack. Apparently, and Daboll puts it on Jones. He didn't motion over Theo Johnson before the play to double team TJ Watt, and TJ Watt going 1-on-1 against Illuminor. He's going to win that almost every time. So loses that fumble, and was right after getting set up in prime territory in scoring position in Steelers territory. Over 67 starts, Daniel Jones has 7 fourth quarter comebacks and 9 game-winning drives. 4 of those 7 comebacks and 5 of those game-winning drives were in 2022 alone. So if you take away 2022, he has 51 starts, which is about 3 full seasons, 3 fourth quarter comebacks, 4 game-winning drives, which is an average of 1 of each of those per season, which, I took a look at like Phil Simms, and Phil didn't have a lot of fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives, interesting enough. But Phil also played on a better offense that probably got the lead and held on to the lead, and also had a great, elite defense that almost never gave up the lead. So I don't know if Phil's the best quarterback to look at. So I look at Kerry Collins. Kerry Collins averaged more, 2 to 3 per season. I looked at Eli Manning. He's far above that, almost 3 to 4 per season. Not so much at the end of his career, but more so in the middle and the beginning. I looked at like Russell Wilson, current Steelers quarterback. He's like a comeback kid, a lot of 3 or 4 per season. Mahomes, not so much, but again, I think Mahomes is a similar situation as Phil Simms, where good offense that gets ahead stays ahead because they have a good defense. But the main takeaway there is that I just don't think Daniel Jones has it anymore to give us a chance to come back and win the game. He's not going to be the guy that can come back and win the game for you. Not anymore. I don't know I almost was about to say, I don't know what happened after 2022, but we know what happened. Shitty offensive line play, losing Andrew Thomas, Josh Azudu, broken neck, torn ACL. We just forgot. When it first happened, when he tore his ACL, we go back to the video, I talked about it, and it took them forever to get him the fucking surgery and to get the rehab started. It was weeks later. I'm like, it's a torn ACL. Have it done now so you can speed up the process. They were talking about when he first tore his ACL, and this was November of last year, coming up on the 1-year anniversary. They're saying most likely week 4 he'll return. He started the season. I don't know. That definitely has an impact. It has an effect. And if you were to believe, if you were to look at Saquon Barkley, right? Barkley tears his ACL earlier in the 2020 season. He comes back in the 2021 season. He's not the same Saquon Barkley. But then when you get to 2022, it's now 2 years removed from the ACL. He has one of the best years of his career, probably his second best or third best to his rookie season in maybe 2019, since before tearing the ACL. So maybe it really does take, especially for a quarterback that likes to scramble, likes to run, and a lot of his success depends on him being mobile. It takes his second season. So that's it. We are out of excuses for Daniel Jones. This is it. If you really want to hang on and still continue to be a DJ defender, that's what you can hang your hat on. it takes 2 years to get back to 100% after you tear your ACL. You want to go with that, run with that, fine with me. But since 2020, with the exception of 2022, his fantasy, he's been 22nd or worse at his position at quarterback in terms of fantasy value. So I know fantasy's for nerds, for losers, but there's something to be said about it's pretty good way to do a comparison. 22nd, he's below average. Yeah, and I said Daniel Jones just can't win games after the strip sack. He then has a wide open Theo Johnson and a wide open Devin Singletary, with the game on the line, and it airmails it, overthrows Devin Singletary by so much for the game-ending interception. And I just retweeted my own message. This is an evergreen tweet. Daniel Jones just can't win games. On offense, I'd say the star of the game, Tyrone Tracy Jr. I know I'm going on a limb there. 20 carries, 145 yards, and a touchdown, average 7.25 yards per carry. Even if you do take away that long 45-yard run, 19 carries, 100 yards. Yeah, sign me up, dude. It's over 5 yards a carry. He made his 4th consecutive start and led the team in carries, career high 145 yards, 45-yard touchdown run, the longest play of the Giants season. Dear God. Tracy's the first Giants running back with 100 or more rushing yards and a rushing touchdown since Saquon Barkley versus the Texans in November of 2022, when Saquon went for 152 yards and a score. He's the first Giants back with multiple 100-yard games in a season since Barkley in 2022, and the first rookie since Barkley in 2018. So, I'd have to say, I was lamenting that I'm sorry. I just wanted Barkley to play out the rest of his career with the Giants. I don't think that's such a bad thing. I really love the guy. I like the way he played. He was a phenom. He's a freak. And we hadn't seen anything like him on the offensive side of the ball. Odell you could throw out there, but I think Odell pales in comparison to what Saquon is able to do and how he's able to alter a game. So, I think we should have re-signed him, but this makes it hurt a little bit less, knowing that if Tyrone Tracy continues to do this, maybe not on a weekly basis, but every other week, you feel good about, your running back situation moving forward. You feel like you got your guy. And the fact that he's putting up numbers, Barkley-esque numbers, without as a 5th rounder is insane. I forget who said it, but he's one of the Giants' best 5th round draft choices and the NFL's best 5th round draft choices in recent years. High praise. The 145 yards that he put up was the highest rushing total by a Giants rookie since Barkley. Ran for 179 at Washington at the end of that in December 2018. Tracy tied Eddie Price for the 5th highest rushing total by a rookie in Giants history. Price ran for 145 yards at Baltimore in November of 1950. Jesus. The only rookies with more yards were Bill Pascal, 188 yards versus Washington in December of 1943. Barkley, who put up 170 at Washington in December 2018. Price, 156 yards versus the New York Yanks. And Ahmad Bradshaw, 151 yards at Buffalo, December 2007. So, hell, I'll take a Ahmad Bradshaw 2.0. Take that in a heartbeat. Give us five-ish really good seasons. Tracy's 45-yarder was the Giants' longest run since Wayne Gallman gained 60 yards at Seattle in December of 2020 when we upset the Seahawks. And the Wayne train was in full effect. And it was also the team's longest touchdown run since Barkley's 67-yarder at Washington in December 2019. So love everything about this dude. And what sucks is that he had a stinger or shoulder injury at one point. And then you could see he was definitely concussed. I mean, like, you had Steelers calling for the sideline doctors. You had Giants players calling for the doctors. You see him woozy as fuck walking off the field. So we just can't have nice things. We can't celebrate the small wins. We can't have good things without immediately being tarnished and polluted and contaminated and turned rotten and spoiled. So my guess is that he will be out against the Commanders. So we go back to Motor, which, hey, that's not a bad 1-2 punch, despite the fact that we just can't score points. Darius Slayton led the team in receiving yards, 108 yards on 4 catches, 7 targets. Increased his career total receptions to 249. That moves him past Aaron Thomas and into 17th place on the Giants' career list. Evan Engram is next up with 262. So I would think, unless he gets traded, which is a very real possibility, that he should be able to surpass Evan Engram this season, which I'm pulling for and rooting for. Slayton now has 3,744 career receiving yards, 3,744 career receiving yards, moving ahead of Plaxico Burress, whoa, and Mark Bavaro, whoa, into 19th place in team history. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. I like Slayton. He drops a ton of balls, which sucks. I love him as a person. I think if he could just get the drops under control, I mean, you can see the kind of separation he can get. He can make people look stupid on the field, and he's a burner, and he can take off and big plays. And it's just, I don't know. I'd hate to see him go. And I don't know that you're going to get a lot in return for trading him. So I just build on it. I really like that Neighbors Slayton combo. It's just we don't have play calling and the guy to execute the play calling for it to work and be productive. Malik Neighbors caught team high 7 passes for 71 yards. He's the 3rd player in the Super Bowl era with 40 or more receptions through his first 6 career games, joining, take a guess, Saquon Barkley, who had 40 in 2018, and the Rams' Puka Nacua, who had 50 last year. Theo Johnson had 3 catches for 35 yards on 4 targets. That's right where I want him. If we could get that every game, music to thine ears. And then, of course, Wan'Dale Robinson had 5 catches for 30 yards. I mean, like, what the actual fuck, dude? Like, what the actual fuck? I mentioned it when we were kind of breaking down Joe Shane's draft classes, and I'm just not in on Wan'Dale Robinson. I just don't see it. It was literally a screen fest for the first quarter into the second quarter. I mean, it was like that was all we were throwing was just screen to Singletary, screen to Tracy, screen to Robinson, screen to Theo, screen to Wan'Dale, screen to Theo, screen to Singletary, screen to Tracy. Like, and for the most part, yeah, I understand it and I get it. It just sucks that has to happen. Steelers have a crazy pass rush. I had mentioned that the screen game, we'll have to lean on that. And knowing how successful we've been recently with the screen game, it's like I don't hate it. And it for the most part worked. But that stat line is never not going to drive me crazy. 5 catches, 30 yards. It's just not going to win you games, dude. It's just not. They have got to figure out a better way to get him involved in it's like, fine, you want to throw a wide receiver screen to him per game, see if he breaks it. Okay. But to throw repeatedly these short ass passes, what is the expectation there? And I guess it's just like, well, let's pick up 5 yards. We need to pick up 4 yards. We need to pick up 5 yards. We need to get some positive play. Okay, but I don't think it's not scaring defenses. At best, it gets you a field goal. It's not going to get you touchdowns. We gained 183 yards in the first half, 64 more than we had all of week 7 against the Eagles. Yikes. Only one other team has gained more than the Giants, 394 yards against the Steelers defense this season, and that was the Cowboys in week 5 when they gained 445 in a win. We did not win. So, if you're into moral victories, I guess, if you're into that kind of thing, congratulations on your trophy and your medal and your cookie. But, it's just tough watching a team be productive against one of the league's best defenses and just knowing that it's just like, it's another L. We were 0-3 in the red zone. And this is the 4th time this season that we have not scored a first half touchdown. Score touchdowns, dude. I mean, God, you would think it's like the hardest thing on the planet Earth with our offense. Tracy has that long touchdown run and it was great to watch. And then I see we're going for 2, which why would you ever go for 2 with this offense? Why? Especially when you're down 8. I guess it's a field goal fest. You go to 23-17. Again, that's not going to win you games, man. I don't know. It's one thing when it's like the 80s Giants and it's Bill Parcells and you have like legitimately the league's top defense. But it's another thing when you have this Giants defense is not quite there yet. We're like an average defense. Again, it's improved over the recent years because we have been such a shit show for years. Yes, our defense has improved. It's an average defense. Yes, our offensive line has improved. It's an average offensive line. And that's what I was hoping for and asking for. Like, let's just be average and see if we can win games. The problem is our quarterback is not average. It's below average. So that sucks. And why? And we can't even execute our standard offense. Why the fuck would you think that 2-point conversion would work? What about that screamed, this is going to work? And I think that was Evan Neal's only snap of the game. And you put him into a play that is so far-fetched and you could tell no one knew what the fuck they were doing. No one. And Daniel got pissed because he probably thought this is a stupid play call and it's not going to work. And then that's in my head where I just saw him yelling and screaming and being so frustrated because he's like, why the fuck would we call that play? I knew it was not going to work. That's how I'm probably wrong, but like, what made you think that was going to work, dude? And shocking enough, look who got through. I think it was TJ Watt and he blasted right through Evan Neal and Devin Singletary as your lead blockers. And what's crazy about that play is, it's probably on Daniel. Like, dude, just make sure everyone's set. And if it's a play clock issue, the play clock issue is just out of control. Daniel, like the amount of delay games, the amount of times that he's having a quick snap, the amount of times that he's almost getting delay games is like, it's just awful. It's another knock against him amongst many knocks, so many knocks. For whom the bell tolls, man. It tolls for thee, Daniel Jones. And you can get mad and angry and like people are saying it's great to see he has emotion and it's like, yeah, he's cracked. He's had to have cracked. It's one thing when you're Eli Manning and like you go to the playoffs in year 2, you go to the playoffs in year 3, you win the Super Bowl year 4. Like you start to get a decent reputation. You start to get the confidence of your teammates. You start to, and to not show emotion as Eli Manning, but having pulled off what he did. And Eli showed emotion here and there, but maybe just don't take the Eli Manning approach anymore. And like start to get, and maybe that's what is happening with Daniel. He's like, you know what? I try to be Eli Manning. I'm not Eli Manning. So I'm just going to let it rip. And I'm here for it, dude. Like, yeah, as of right now, you're not going to be the starting quarterback in 2025. And people are like, well, you should bench him. And it's like, that's not what the game plan is this year, guys. We signed him to a massive contract. We're going to roll him out there for the rest of the season as a starter. Because what's your alternative? Like Drew Lock has looked like barf. Tommy DeVito is your emergency quarterback who only can go in if there are injuries to Lock and Jones. So, and that's why I think, enough of this. We're 2-6 and we have a shot, which we'll get into with the trade deadline. But just let him play and show the world and show your own organization. This is what's holding us back. That is the fucking MO. The MO is not we're not making the playoffs this year. Like that's not the MO. Like and for Joe Schoen to pull what he did last year, and if he pulls that shit again this year, you don't have the chips that you had last year, but like it was just a stupid move. We'll get into it, but defensively, Adoree Jackson missed his second straight game. Shocker. Cordell Flott was out. He got to start last week, but left with injured groin, so he was inactive. Trey Hawkins was banged up, but he suited up. And so we had Deonte Banks, Nick McLeod, Drew Phillips as our healthy cornerbacks, and then we elevated Greg Stroman. Defensive tackle Armon Watts also made his Giants debut. He's 6'5", 307, had 2 tackles, 1 for a loss. He made the tackle, and I was like, who the hell is this? This is where we're at. It's hard to, I guess there's a couple perceptions that you could have there where it's like one perception is, man, our roster is this bad that we have to bring in guys and elevate guys. Like the guys that we drafted are so bad that we have to bring in guys from the street. The other one is, well, at least we're being proactive and saying, okay, these guys don't have it. And so we need to make a move. I don't know. You can look at it either way, I guess. Stroman, 5'11", 180, elevated from the practice squad, had 2 solo tackles, replacing Deonte Banks, who did not take a single snap in the second half. Stroman's a 6-year vet, 29 games, 5 starts for Washington and Chicago. Deonte Banks got benched, and that's what we've been calling for. That's what I think is the appropriate action. The tackling attempts, the only other corner I know that can get away with that kind of shit is Deion Sanders, man. And Deion Sanders intercepts the ball, and when he intercepts the ball, he scores. Like he is a playmaker who can change the face of the game with one play. Deonte Banks has not shown that. Deonte Banks is not Deion Sanders. Deonte Banks has to learn how to fucking tackle. So I know people are pointing out like, oh, he went low on Najee Harris and got hurdled. That's, Daboll dismissed that. I'm dismissing that. That's not the play that I think people are going to be talking about. It's just like, the Pickens touchdown gets called back because he tapped the same foot twice, and you had to get each foot to touch before going out of bounds, or you have to get them both feet inbounds, not just one. I love to. It's like that John Madden quote or clip where he's talking about 1 knee equals 2 feet or something like that. I guess tapping the same foot twice doesn't count as 2 feet. But on that play, and they said it on the broadcast, why are these corners? I mean, Pickens goes up. The ball is up above his head. He catches it. There's 2 guys there. I think it's Hawkins and Banks, or maybe it's Pinnock and Banks. Banks is closer. I don't think Pinnock was close enough to make that kind of play, but Banks, go for the fucking ball, dude. You see the ball, punch it out of the guy's hands. So I think, and there was talk about, I guess the reports that Dexter Lawrence is going off on the secondary and the sidelines, and they were, talking back. But Dexter Lawrence is a captain, and he's a captain for a reason, because he's not only a top performer, but I think he's got an attitude about him. He's a fucking fierce beast. Savage dude. He was dismantling the Steelers' offensive line. And no, he doesn't get a sack, but he caused 2 or 3 sacks. And he's an angry man, and he plays angry, and he talks shit. And I love it. So if I'm going to side with anyone, I'm siding with Dexter Lawrence, not the secondary. So if he says the secondary needs to step up, I like to see that step up. And I wish, and it'd be nice if someone on the offensive side of the ball, is anyone going up to Daniel Jones? And I'm not, again, another excuse, but like, is anyone going up to Daniel Jones and being like, hey, fucking step it up, guy. Let's fucking go. I don't think so. Sexy Dexy became just the fourth interior lineman to win the sack title. Or he seeks to become the fourth. All right. You know what? Let's pause. Let's reset. I'll go back to one. Everybody, quiet on set. Sexy Dexy seeks to become just the fourth interior lineman to win the sack title and possibly break Aaron Donald's record of 20 and a half sacks. I think he can do it. I think he will do it. And it just sucks that we don't have an offense to take advantage of that. Although now I'm thinking about it, Aaron Donald on the Rams, they had Jared Goff. They traded with the Lions to get Stafford. So we'll get to it in the trade deadline, but I don't know who we would trade for, but we'll think about some more. Azeez Ojulari continues to perform and to excel. 2 sacks, notches 5th sack in 3 games, 6th of the season while filling in for Kayvon. He's now tied for 10th in the league with 6 sacks. So I do think, we'll get in with the trade deadline stuff. I do think he has a higher probability of going over Darius Slayton. There was I saw a tweet in the timeline that was like, Ojulari is only 24. Kayvon Thibodeau is only 24. Do you trade Kayvon Thibodeau and keep Azeez Ojulari? I think, most people would say no to that, but it is an interesting thought because everyone's knocking Ojulari for his injury history, but when he's 100% healthy, he's more productive than Kayvon. He just is. So, it's just an interesting thought, something to think about, in your downtime. They're the same age. And if Ojulari can figure out how to stay healthy, he will outproduce Kayvon Thibodeau. I'm going to think about. Brian Burns now has a sack in 4 consecutive games. He notched a sack thanks to, again, the efforts of Sexy Dexy. Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden also split a sack, which is so on brand for those two. I feel like I think I love this defense. It's just, what is holding them back? Is it really the secondary? Is it really just our corners, our outside corners? Because you got to figure, we think we've found something in Drew Phillips in the slot. We like what we have with Pinnock and Nubin as safety. Is it really just a matter of Banks and then whoever's on that other side? I guess it is. The 4 sacks the Giants had increased our season total 35. That's 1 more than we had in the entire 2023 season. I can't believe I just read that. I can't believe that's an actual stat, that we only had 34 sacks last season. And Kayvon had like 11 of those. And the 35 sacks that we have is 5 more than any other team in the NFL. So very interesting that, Shane Bowen's defense, it was like, well, he doesn't blitz. He's going to rely on his pass rushers, and his run defense is top notch. And so far, run defense has been manure, and our pass rush has lived up to its billing for the most part. Sack wise, are we getting hurries? Are we getting pressures? Are we getting hits? That's the other component of it, right? Great to have sacks, but it's nice to have all that. Bobby Okereke led the Giants with 14 goddamn tackles, 7 of which were solo. Of course, we talked about the peanut punch he did on Russell Wilson. It was such a vet move. And then you look at him on the sideline, he's like bleeding down his arm. That's just a dog, dude. He's a tough dude. So I'm very happy to have him on the squad. It is still concerning though about this rush defense. What's happening there? What is going on? Because I feel like I like how Micah McFadden plays. I like how Bobby Okereke plays. You like our pass rush. What is not translating in the run defense? What is happening in the rush defense that we're not? Is it simply a matter of fact of like Dexter needs a breather? We bring in these other jabronis who can't like. Is it really Nacho? Is it really DJ Davidson? Now that we got this Watts guy in the mix, Jordan Riley was inactive. Like, is it really just a matter of finding another defensive lineman to spell or to pair with Dexter Lawrence? Do we really miss A'Shawn Robinson that much? I guess we do. We didn't intercept a pass for the 7th consecutive game. Something has got to give there. Something has got to give. Why can't we intercept the pass? Newman was a ball hawk in college, I believe, when he was at Minnesota. I think that's what attracted us to him, and what ultimately, I mean, he's the best safety in the draft. That's why we picked him, was he was a ball hawk who was going to get us interceptions. And of course, you look at fucking Xavier McKinney, and he leads the league in interceptions, like 6 interceptions, 7 interceptions now. Again, though, really, you're going to pay him that much money and Saquon? And if you're going to pick one of the two, you're going to pick Xavier over Saquon? I don't know, man. I'm fine with him going somewhere else. It's just like, it'd be nice to have that decision look a little more palatable, digestible. 8 different Steelers caught at least one pass, with no one player catching more than 4. I mean, the deep ball. I guess Russell Wilson is back. Maybe it was just like Sean Payton really got under his skin. And he just couldn't figure it out in Denver. And all of a sudden he's in Pittsburgh and he's like chucking the ball over the place. 3 of his 4 pass attempts that were 20 or more yards down the field. He completed 3 of those for 108 yards and a touchdown, earning a passer rating of 156.3 on those attempts. Yikes, man. Yikes. And, part of that was Banks getting benched. And that's kind of the result of that. But it also can't have it happen. Steelers also ran for 81 yards on 9 carries in the first quarter alone. Finished with 167 yards and 31 carries, which is over 5 yards per carry. Najee Harris averaged 6 yards per carry, his second highest mark of the season. 115 rushing yards for Harris was a season high. Jalen Warren added a season high 46 rushing yards and 5.1 yards per carry. So gotta figure it out, man. Gotta figure out the rush defense. And to me, it's like, if people are saying that Okereke and McFadden are playing as well as their grades are indicating, it's got to be a defensive line issue, no? I just love that Bill Belichick, I watched the Manning cast, and Bill Belichick was, you could tell he was chomping at the bit to eviscerate the Giants and what they're doing. It feels like he's going to shit all over them until Mara picks up the phone and is like, all right, fine. You want to coach this team? You want to be the GM? Go for it. Oh my God. And LT, Jesus Christ, out of his mind. Smoking Monte Cristos, talking about Johnny Walker Black, telling Belichick that he was so boring in meetings. That's just pure, raw, unadulterated talent. The guy could just go out, get hammered the night before, do a bump of coke, and just excel on the field. Just do whatever LT0 was an actual play call. Just LT, do what you want. At least I got to see him play, Giants held the Steelers out of the end zone in all 4 of their trips inside the 20. In the red zone, Giants have now allowed opponents to score a touchdown on just 8 of 19 trips inside the 20. The 42.1% red zone defense ranks as the 5th best in the NFL. So that's good. I guess that's something to hang your hat on. But it's we're not winning that way because our offense can't score when they get in the red zone. So, and we're not going to we have proven repeatedly that we are not going to win field goal competitions. And then special teams ultimately was the dagger that doomed us. 73-yard punt return by Calvin Austin III with 4:38 left in the third. It was the first punt return touchdown by Giants opponent since Detroit's Jamal Agnew took back an 88-yarder in September of 2017. Was that the opener? I think I was at that game. Was I at that game? I might have been at the game. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. Everyone on the Manning cast saw it. Giants fans saw it, but everyone else refused to acknowledge that the Steelers ran into the kicker. So Nick McCloud gets called for an illegal shift or formation or some bullshit, which, I mean, literally, and this again goes back to Brian Daboll and his staff. We are seeing the same penalties over and over again. Holding is one thing, okay? Holds happen. That happens repeatedly. I get it. Whatever. But illegal motion, illegal shift, and illegal man downfield, those three cannot and should not be fucking happening every week, dude. Every week they're happening. Why is that happening? How is that happening? Nick McCloud gets called. You know, we see the flag and we figure, oh, it's running as the kicker on the Steelers, so we're going to get a first down. And it turns out, nope, it's just on McCloud. It gets declined. It's a touchdown. I mean, you know, Eli was losing it on the Manning cast, and I'm done losing it when it comes to referees and the Giants. Like it's just you have to assume that we have to beat both the team we're facing and the referee crew. That's just something that we have to deal with. So, it's just so many flags that are game-changing, altering flags. So, and that touchdown doesn't happen. Russell Wilson, you get the punch out from Okereke. Maybe your approach on offense is a little bit different. You kick the field goal there, and maybe you win the game. I don't know. Probably not. Good to see that Greg Joseph made all 4 of his field goal attempts. And Hawk Tua, our replacement punter, with Jamie Gillen out for a 3rd straight week with that hammy, placed 2 inside the 20. He did have one really bad punt, but 2 inside the 20. We only punted 4 times. So, I don't know, man. That's the Giants and that's the Steelers game. NFL trade deadline is November 5th. Quickly approaching. We are 2-6, and we are staring down the barrel of 2-7. We are projected to finish 5-12, which is a stretch in my opinion. I don't know how we're going to get to 5 wins. And we have a less than 1% chance of making the playoffs. Now, out of 186 teams that have started 2-6 in the Super Bowl era, so that's since 1966, only 3 have managed to make the playoffs. That's 1.61% of all teams that found themselves in this situation. 3 teams. First team, the 1970 Cincinnati Bengals started 1-6 and won their last 7 to make the playoffs and would go on to lose in the divisional round. The next 2 are probably why Joe Schoen did what he did last year at the trade deadline and why he might be less prone to make a deal this season. In 2020, there was an extra playoff team added. So it used to be 6, now it's 7. In 2021, a 17th game was added. So there's an extra opportunity to get an extra win and to get into the playoffs. And that's important because the next 2 teams are more recent since those revisions happened, since we added the extra playoff team and since we actually added the extra game. So there's 3 teams total. We have the 70 Bengals before all the recent updates happened to the playoff format and the regular season. First of the 2 is the 2020 Washington Commanders, or they were the Washington football team then. Only team in NFL history to start 2-7 and make the playoffs. Of course, they had the benefit and the fortune of playing in the NFC East during that season. They won the they won the division with a 7-9 record. And then, honestly, I mean, they took it to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers ended up, with Tom Brady, ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. But like it was 31-23. They were in the game the whole time. And then the 2022 Jacksonville Jaguars won 6 of their final 7 games, including the last 5 games of the regular season, to finish 9-8 and win the AFC South. So again, you're looking at, if you take away the extra playoff team, which I guess wouldn't affect either of those two, 17th game probably helped the Jaguars. But, the common thread there, commonality, is those divisions sucked in those years. I mean, like 2020, we almost won. We went 6-10. And, the AFC South was not great 2 years ago. So is that what Joe Schoen has in the back of his head when he didn't make the moves he should have made last year in trading Barkley and McKinney? And is it why he's not going to make some moves this year and trade Slayton and Ojulari? Maybe he's thinking about the 2022 Detroit Lions, who started the season 1-6 and then won 8 of their last 10 to finish with a 9-8 record. They only were eliminated from playoff contention in the last week of the regular season because the Seahawks won and made the playoffs at 9-8. So we have the second least amount of space under the salary cap. And while that doesn't really, trading Slayton or Ojulari doesn't really do much to alleviate that cap space, trading Daniel Jones would. No freaking clue who would ever contemplate or think about taking him. But if the plan is the most probable plan is to cut Daniel Jones after the season, you incur $22 million in dead cap. Do you take on that 22? Do you take on the $22 million of his salary for this season in a trade to at least get something in return? Does that make any sense? So like, instead of you don't get anything in return, you just cut him after the season and you still take on that $22 million in dead cap. Why not trade him, offer to take, the $22 million, pay that for whoever takes him. Problem is, I think he'd still be owed $18 million for the rest of the season, and that's where it gets a little sticky, because it's like, which teams are in playoff contention that need a quarterback? You're looking at the NFC. Lions have Goff. I mean, it would really have to take someone getting injured, like in a playoff contender, at least in the NFC, this weekend. Like if Jared Goff goes down, I don't think we would make a trade with the Commanders. I don't think the Commanders would take Daniel Jones. The Falcons, the Falcons are not going to trade for Daniel Jones. If Kirk Cousins goes down, they have Michael Penix Jr. Do the Cardinals, if Kyler Murray goes down, do they pull the trigger and say, you know what, we'll take Daniel. We think we can have him do a reasonable facsimile of what Kyler Murray can do. The Packers, if Jordan Love goes down, Malik Willis has shown that he's proven himself that he can come in and win. The Vikings, if Darnold goes down, you don't have JJ McCarthy. Are the Vikings in play? Eagles, you're not going to trade with them. The Bears, Caleb Williams, I don't see them making that deal. Buccaneers have Baker. If he goes down, it's the Niners, like Brock Purdy goes down. I don't think they would make that move. Seahawks, if Geno Smith goes down. Rams, so I don't see many takers in the NFC. Now, if we go back to the AFC, Broncos are winning with Bo Nix. Ravens have Lamar. Chargers have Herbert. Steelers are looking good with Russell Wilson. Texans have CJ Stroud. Chiefs have Mahomes. Colts have Joe Flacco. Bengals have Burrow. So, I don't see, the only teams that I could see possibly making a trade for him, like the Raiders, Titans, and Browns, who are probably not, they're not, they have the same chance of making the playoffs that we do. So, unless they think that Daniel Jones is the future, I think the Browns have something in Jameis Winston. I think they have to understand that Deshaun Watson's not the answer. Jaguars are, that would be such a funny trade. Daniel Jones for Trevor Lawrence. They're basically the same dude. And then the Raiders don't really have a plan in place for the future at quarterback. Minshew's kind of like a Band-Aid bridge gap. So, it won't happen, but it's like, you might as well put the feelers out there or someone and be like, hey, but it would have to take, I think it would have to take a very serious injury like this weekend for anyone to consider Daniel Jones taking him on. So I keep mentioning it, but last year we were 2-6 and Barkley was going to be a free agent, big contract on the way. McKinney was going to be a free agent, expecting big money in free agency. You weren't going to sign both those guys, were you? Like you really thought you were, and I understand that he was very surprised by what McKinney got. And in Hard Knocks, we didn't see hardly anything in terms of like what the discussions were like with Xavier McKinney. It was just kind of like a footnote. Like it wasn't even mentioned that much, if at all. It was solely focused on Saquon Barkley. So if we're to believe that Saquon's your focus, you still think for whatever reason that you're going to sign Saquon despite what happened in 2022 and despite how things have fallen apart. You still thought you can let him just test the free agency market and come back and he'll sign with us. Whereas you could have traded Barkley and you could have to someone other than Philadelphia. And you could have traded McKinney and you could have got back draft picks that you desperately, sorely need to improve the offensive fucking line. And you didn't because you thought we had a chance. Why you thought we had a chance, I don't know. Because you were getting Daniel Jones back and you had Andrew Thomas back and you felt we're going to make a run now. Fucking A, dude. I would hope that Shane has learned from that. The problem is you don't have a Barkley or McKinney this year. Where it's like, guy's going to get big money in free agency. You're probably not going to sign him. You can trade him. Trading two of the team's best players would send a message to the locker room that the season was over. Okay. The season legitimately ended the next week. So with Jones tearing his ACL and anyway, Darius Slayton. So there's two candidates really. There's a third that I think Dan Duggan mentioned that it would be, I don't even know. I'd be shocked if we got anything for that guy, but Darius Slayton on pace for a career best season. Giants would create only $1.8 million in cap savings by trading him. We could get a 6th or 7th round pick, which is okay. I don't think that's worth it. And the potential fits are the Steelers, Bucks, Chargers, Lions, Niners, and Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs just acquired DeAndre Hopkins for a conditional 2025 5th round pick. And the Chiefs inherited $5.5 million of Hopkins' remaining salary, final year of his contract. So I don't know that they would make that move. I could see the Niners possibly making the move, but after what I saw out of Ricky Pearsall in the Sunday night game against the Cowboys, Debo's kind of dealing with some shit. Juwan Jennings, I don't know. I think he might have got injured, but he looked like he was emerging and looking good. Ayuk is done. So maybe the Niners. The Lions are interesting because they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have Jameson Williams. Do they have a third wideout that they could use? Chargers. They have Quentin Johnson, right? I don't know that they have the burner though. They do need someone to complement Johnson though. And I think there was talk about bringing back Mike Williams from the Jets, which would be interesting now that they have Devontae Adams. So they might go that route, go with the familiar face over, unfamiliar. Buccaneers could be interesting. They, they lost Evans and Godwin. So like Sterling Shepard, Slay would get to reunite with Sterling Shepard and maybe they could recreate the magic from 2019. And then the Steelers, which I don't know, man. Do the Steelers need it? It seems like they have what they've got. I mean, they got Pickens. They got Russ cooking, spreading the ball around. I guess it wouldn't hurt. And Pittsburgh got a full serving of Darius Slayton on Monday night. They got to see what they could expect. That could be a fit. But again, we're getting a 6th or 7th in return. Woof. Those picks just do almost never, ever, ever turn out. 5th round, we're talking. 4th round, hard to turn down. 3rd round, you got to take it. Right? I think, maybe. I mean, Slay was a 5th rounder. You know, he was our best 5th round pick leading up to Tracy. You know, and the other team would only have to pick up $1 million on his remaining base salary. Ravens already went out and acquired Deontay Johnson from the Panthers. The Texans could be in play. Stephon Diggs suffered a torn ACL. So Houston, that could be something to look at. And Christian Kirk from the Jags suffered a broken collarbone, but the Jags, they're in the same boat as us. I don't think they're like making a push, really. I don't think. So Ravens and Texans, Ravens are probably out. Texans could be something to look at. But I mean, the fact you're getting, DeAndre Hopkins is kind of past his prime, no? Not to be like a hater, but so a 5th rounder for Hopkins. Okay. Raiders traded Devontae Adams to the Jets for a conditional 2025 3rd round pick. Adams is also signed through 2026 for the next 2 seasons. And he restructured his contract. Browns traded Amari Cooper and a 2025 6th round pick to the Bills for a 2025 3rd round pick and a 2026 7th round pick. So, okay, maybe if you're talking about like instead of us getting a 6th and a 7th, we give the Texans a 7th and Slayton for a 4th and a lineman. Just keep throwing bodies at that offensive line. Something will stick. So, and then the other candidate, is a 3rd that we'll get into, but the other one that seems most likely is Azeez Ojulari. He has a cap hit of $2.2 million this year. We would create $880,000 in cap savings by trading him. And again, the projected trade value is a 6th or 7th round pick, which just it is not appetizing at all. It has a very bitter taste looking at that. Potential fits: the Lions, Bears, Falcons, Ravens, and Bills. And okay. Lions makes a lot of sense. I know that there was a clip of, I guess Dan Campbell was at a press conference. I don't know if it was a post-game press conference or what, but I think the press asked him about the trade deadline and he got very giddy and very excited. I don't think you get that giddy and excited over Azeez Ojulari. I could be wrong. But, they did lose Aiden Hutchinson for the year, so they're looking to replace that production from the pass rush. Azeez Ojulari, obviously not Aiden Hutchinson, but can give you the stretches like this where, like, he's giving you a sack per game, which is, so I don't feel like he would be getting that pumped about Azeez Ojulari. Feels like it's a bigger move, but Lions have a need and Ojulari can fill that need. The Bears is interesting. My God, they could have used a pass rush on that fucking Hail Mary at the last play of the game against the Commanders, huh? The Bears, that feels like a fire. That ending to that game feels like Eberflus. That's grounds for getting fired. You're on the goal line and you hand off to a fucking lineman who fumbles the ball, offensive lineman. This is a big game against a team that you're going to be fighting for a playoff spot. Why would you put that in the hands of an offensive lineman? So dumb. And then to not guard the sidelines towards the end of that game and just let the Commanders throw big chunk plays on the sideline to get in a position to throw the Hail Mary. fireable offense number 2, not bringing any kind of pass rush, fireable offense number 3, not reminding your team, your defenders, hey, someone needs to be guarding the guy who's behind the scrum, the group that's going up for the ball, so that you can bat it away and that he doesn't catch it. That's 4. I mean, like literally 4 huge mistakes at the end of that game that cost them a win and ultimately could cost them a playoff spot. So I feel like if Eberflus, doesn't make the playoffs and gets canned, it's like just point to that game. Falcons, I don't know much about. But the NFC South, it's basically them and the Bucs, right? Panthers are out of it, and I don't think the Saints are going to make any kind of moves. So that could be interesting, especially with the Buccaneers reeling after the injuries to Evans and Godwin. Ravens would be, whoa, dude. Ravens or the Bills, adding Ojulari to that mix, because like the Bills that Bills defense has been pretty top notch, and the Ravens defense, it's always been really good, but you add Ojulari like that. Reminiscent of, who did they add? I mean, I feel like they always add a pass rusher at the deadline. It's happened like the past 2 or 3 years. Was it not Suggs, Freeman? I feel like they've added a pass rusher, big pass rushing specialist over the last 2 or 3, 4 years. And it's always paid dividends. So who would I want Aziz to go to? Lions followed by Bills, followed by Ravens. Yeah, it'd be Lions or Bills. Cool. So that's the last candidate is Evan Neal. I guess Dan Duggan threw that out there. I guess. I mean, he is taking up a considerable amount of cap space because he is a top, 7th overall draft pick, first round contract money, So that is a lot of money for a guy that isn't even your 3rd string tackle. It's your 4th string tackle. You literally brought in a guy off the street to start over him. And you said, if that guy gets hurt, we're going to bring in another guy before you. So, yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, if you can save money, I just like, who the fuck is going to take on that contract? I mean, talk about a reclamation project. I mean, I guess there are some offensive line coaches who like get off on that and thrive on that, but I just can't picture anyone doing that unless, I guess the Vikings just lost Darashaw, right? They're starting left tackle down for the season, maybe. But like, you're not putting Evan Neal at left tackle. You move your right tackle to left tackle and you trade for Evan Neal and have him start at right tackle. I don't know. I think the Vikings, I mean, like, I don't understand how any team could look at what the Giants have done and been like, oh yeah, give me some of that sweet Evan Neal. So that's a trade deadline. Commanders preview. Games, we have no more primetime games, no more night games. Thank Allah. Thank Chulutu, whatever that friggin' spaghetti monster is. Thank the powers that be that we don't have to worry about any more primetime games where we get humiliated, embarrassed on a national level. Now we can just quietly lose in daytime when there are a bunch of other games. No one's paying attention. And just go sweetly into the night. Home game, I don't know if we're wearing... Is this one of the games where we're wearing our 80s throwbacks? Possibly. I know we did it last year and the year before. Did we do it 2 years in a row against Washington? So it could be the case again this time. Commanders are favored by 3. Over-under is 43.5. I think you take the Commanders on the spread and probably the over on that one. We lead the all-time series 108-72 with 5 draws. Of course, we got beat by 7 field goals by a guy coming off the goddamn streets, hitting 7 field goals in one game. Lost that. Earlier in the season, in September, that was kind of like, I think that was a major, and I know we've talked about like, well, the Vikings loss doesn't look so bad considering what they've done since then, since looking at what Minnesota has done since then. The Washington loss is not as bad considering what they've been able to do and the record that they've been able to pull off. And so, sure. But like for me, it's like, all right, you're 0-2 now. These are 2 games that, we thought we could win. So that was kind of like the beginning of the end, I think, for this season. Just knowing that like, even when our defense is doing their job and even when our offense is moving the ball, still can't win the game. Before that was the game before our Thanksgiving game last season when Tommy DeVito, it was the beginning of Tommy DeVito fever. Don't know if you remember that. He threw 3 touchdowns, 2 of which to Saquon. It was the start of a 3-game win streak. He was sacked 9 times in that game. Holy smokes. Washington had 28 first downs, which is unfathomable. But our defense forced 6 turnovers, recovered 3 fumbles, picked off, I believe it was Sam Howell, Aaron Wolf 3 times. And Isaiah Simmons had the game-clinching interception for a touchdown. Before that was the week before Halloween. We won 14-7. Tyrod Taylor threw 2 touchdowns, 1 to Saquon, 1 to Darren Waller. Giants got 6 sacks. Washington was 1 for 15 on third down, had 10 penalties. And we've kind of done that. And Ron Rivera was relieved of his duties. And then before that, it was the week before Christmas 2022. We won that Sunday night football game 20-12. We sacked Washington 3 times, recovered 2 fumbles. That's when Taylor Heineke was still with the ball club with Washington, and it was the Kayvon Thibodeau game. 12 tackles, strip sack, fumble for return for a touchdown. Graham Cano kicked 2 50-yard field goals. Those were the days. And then another December matchup in 2022, this time at home. It was a 2020 tie. Washington held the ball and went into overtime. Washington held the ball for 41 minutes. Daniel Jones hit Darius Slayton for a first down to the Washington 35 with a little under 6 minutes left in the game. And what would have been an automatic field goal that would have most likely put the game out of reach. And on that play, center John Feliciano gets a taunting penalty, 15 yards, pushes back to the 50, which we then don't do anything with the ball, and we have to punt. And Washington then takes the ball, goes down the field, and Heineke hits Dotson for the 28-yard pass to tie the game. Gano ended up missing a 58-yard field goal at the end of overtime, and we ended up with a tie. Should have been a win. So Washington is 2-2 away from their home. We are 0-4 at home. Ugh, I feel so bad for season ticket holders. We are 31st in points scored per game. Washington's 3rd. We're 14th in points allowed per game. Washington is 10th. Washington's 8th in takeaway differential. We're 21st. We're 23rd in passing yards per game. Washington is 10th. The Commanders are 3rd in rushing yards per game. We are 24th. Washington is 6th in defensive passing yards allowed per game. We are 8th. And Washington is 25th in rushing yards allowed per game, and we are 27th. So my guess is we'll see a lot of running. Not a lot of passing yards going down. And I think it probably will be a repeat of what we saw in the first game. I don't know if it's going to be as close as it was in the first game. I don't know. I got a feeling that Washington is going to pull away towards the end there. It's mostly because of Jaden Daniels. The guy that Brian Daboll was salivating over in the draft and wanted us to mortgage our future to trade up for him and get him. He is 5th in QBR, 7th in passer rating. He's tied for 9th in passing yards per completion, 4th in net yards per pass attempt, 2nd in completion percentage, 6th in lowest interception percentage, 3rd in game-winning drives and in comebacks, and 6th in rushing yards per attempt. So, yeah, be nice to have a quarterback that does it. That said, I think, he's maybe I'm misreading the situation here, but I think league wide, we all agree he's kind of exceeding expectations, right? I don't think anyone really projected him to be this good. I think there was a chart that I saw from, I think it was Doug Analytics, some analytics person that says he does throw his first read a lot. So Daniel Jones is known for throwing his first read a lot. And typically when you throw your first read a lot, that doesn't lead to a ton of success in production. So it's something to keep an eye on. Maybe the Giants can key in on that, and wherever his first read is, attack. And then, will he do something similar to Daniel Jones, where if he doesn't have his first read, he just automatically scrambles? And in that case, who are you getting to spy Jaden Daniels? Is it Okereke? Is it McFadden? Is it Isaiah Simmons? I don't know. Bijan Robinson is tied for 6th in rushing touchdowns. He'll probably get another 1 or 2 against us. Terry McLaurin, scary Terry McLaurin, is 4th in receiving yards and 9th in receiving yards per game. So got to keep him bottled up. Don't let him kill us and hurt us. Have it be, who else do they have? Zach Ertz. Austin Eckler is 6th in yards per touch and tied for 10th in all-purpose yards. So, I think he took the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, was called back, but that was the play that Graham Gano got hurt. So, can probably expect a big return from Eckler at some point, which will be a game changer. And the guy that I mentioned at the beginning of this preview, Austin Seibert, first in the NFL in points scored, tied for first in field goals made, and first in field goals attempted. He's 23 of 25. So I can either see the Commanders just pulling away and winning by 10, or Austin Seibert just friggin' drilling a game-winning field goal as time expires from way downtown. That's how I see this playing out. Unless, Daniels does have the rib thing. He was dealing with it all throughout the game against the Bears. They constantly showing him on the sideline, getting work done. So maybe you get a hit on Daniels and he's not at 100%, capacity. And maybe he has to sit out, and then we take advantage of the backup. Maybe. But I don't know, man. This team, it just doesn't feel. It's I think we're playing better than last year, but yet how many games we're so close to winning last year and we didn't, and we're so close to winning games this year and we're not. It's just, how do you get over that friggin' hump, dude? And I think is it really just the quarterback? I feel like I say that every week. Is it just the quarterback? But it takes a village. I don't know. It takes more than one guy, right? So Daniel usually plays well against Washington. He played well, I guess, against them in the first game. You'd have to think that Washington adjusts and really shifts their coverage to Malik. And if they do that, my God, I hope that we're able to take advantage with Slayton or Theo Johnson. But the fact that we're not going to have Tracy sucks. I don't think he's going to clear concussion protocol. And why rush him back? It's just you have Singletary. He's more than capable. Maybe he's not going to put up the same kind of stats, but at least he's capable, right? I guess. So, oh boy, hate to end on a downer like that, but it's just not a lot of stuff to look forward to. It's just tough to watch. You see some other teams that play just ugly football, but they get the win. They just get the win. They play ugly, but they get the win. And we have to play so goddamn perfect every game. And it's just one or two things go wrong and we lose. Meanwhile, stuff goes wrong for other teams that win. So how is it that we can't win? You lose this, you go to 2-7. maybe you beat. I would hope that you beat the Panthers. So you go 3-7. The Buccaneers game, I mean, that looks like it could be winnable now. I feel like that could be winnable. So then you're 4-7, and then you're going into that Thanksgiving game against Dallas. So, it's again 1%. I'll hang on to it. I'm not going to get too amped about it. It's still 1%. I keep saying like the Mets were 1% to make the postseason in late May. So went to the NLCS, but I just don't. Daniel Jones is not Francisco Lindor. Ugh. I mean, the Saints game might be winnable. So I guess that's 5 wins right there. Maybe the Colts game is winnable. So yeah, looking at 6-11 again. Hooray. Maybe 7 wins. It really, I mean, without Andrew Thomas, I mean, maybe if you had Andrew Thomas fully healthy, I could see us possibly putting together a run where we're in the hunt. I mean, old Mother Hubbard at left tackle, dude. Over 2 guys that have been on your team for 2+ seasons, 2 draft picks, one of which, Evan Neal. I never thought I would see another Eric Flowers, and we're not even seeing an Eric Flowers. We're seeing something worse than Eric Flowers. That is like monumental, historic failure. All right. I thought this was going to be a quick one, and it wasn't, so I apologize. But next Giants episode, we'll probably take a look at, if there was a trade, the ramifications of the trade deadline. This bye week cannot come soon enough. That's for damn sure. 9:30 in the morning, I got to wake up. And the day before is my birthday. And I don't have any plans except I'm going to get nice and toasty, my friends. We're going to ascend to another dimension, to another plane, spiritual plane. I don't know that at 9:30, that game, I might watch that entire game in my bed. Like set the alarm for 9:29, turn on the TV and just watch in bed. And then we get a bye. Oh, that bye. That sweet, sweet bye. But good God, if you lose to the Commanders and the Panthers at 2-8, that's a wrap on the season, dude. I don't think I need to watch another game. I don't need to defend my fandom. I've been a diehard fan for 4 decades. They literally control my emotional state, my mood, and how I interact with others, my relationships. Like that actually happens. So I don't need anyone telling me, oh, you're not a fan. Like, it's healthier for me to not watch. That's what my therapist said. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Let's go Big Blue. Adios, muchachos. Okay.